Hello and welcome to the G'day Sally Show. I'm Sally Squires, entertaining the world. And tonight I'm reading a story which is Footstep 11 from my book Footsteps to Fairy Forest. And you remember this is about a little girl who found a map, and each day she's following the map to see if she can find each footstep. And when she finds a footstep, guess what happens? She finds a fairy. So this is Footstep 11. One day a bird followed me home, and as I reached Grandma's house it disappeared. But when I went into my room it was sitting on the windowsill. It stayed there until I fell asleep. After that the bird, who I named Willie Watcher, followed me home every night and sat on my windowsill until I went to sleep. I always put crumbs out on the window ledge and a small bowl of water. Sometimes Willie Watcher would have a swim in it and clean its feathers. This morning I was really anxious to see which fairy I would meet today, so I set off very early. I didn't even wait for breakfast. I just put some of my grandma's delicious fairy cakes in a paper bag in my bucket to have later. On the map it showed that today I would be walking along the path to the southwest, so I checked my compass and hurried off. There seemed to be a lot of birds up early as they were singing and chirping all along the path. The trees were very thick along this part of the forest, and there was only enough room for me to walk along it. I was hoping that there would be no obstacles today, so I could find Footstep 11 and meet up with another fairy. I started to sing along with the birds as I skipped along the path. I hadn't been walking long when I could see something blue in front of me a little further along the path. Uh-oh, I thought. I hope this will not stop me. As I got closer, I could see that it was a broken bike, and it was blocking the path completely. How will I ever get over it, I thought. There was a moment when I thought that maybe I would not be able to meet today's fairy. But suddenly a big brown shadow fell across the path, and when I looked up, you won't believe it, but there was a huge brown kangaroo standing right there. I wonder if I could fit inside its pouch, I thought, and then maybe it will jump with me over the broken bike. And you'll never guess what happened, but that is exactly what happened. That kangaroo squatted down so that I knew it meant for me to get inside its pouch. Once I was safe inside its pouch, it hopped back along the path, and then it did a giant leap right over that broken bike. Hooray, I thought, I'm not going to miss out on meeting another fairy today. After we had leapt over that bike, I hopped out of the kangaroo's pouch, and when I turned to thank it, the roo had disappeared. So I took out my map to check on what today's signpost would be, as I had forgotten to check earlier. It looked like a stone arrowhead, so now I knew what to look out for. As I was walking, I noticed that Willie Watcher was flying above me and a little bit in front of me. This was unusual, because he usually doesn't find me until I'm on my way home. Suddenly he flew down and landed on the path in front of me and started pecking at the ground. When I reached him, I could see that he was pecking at a stone arrowhead. As I got out my spade to dig down to Footstep 11, I wanted to thank Willie, but when I looked up to thank him, he was gone. Once I found the stone marked Footstep 11, I brushed the dirt off and put it in my bucket. Then I sat down and waited for the fairy. It wasn't long before I saw a green and blue flash, and a fairy landed on the palm of my hand. She had on the cutest pair of red shoes. She said she was Kasaneptera, the fairy of the dells, and then I fell asleep. So now we're going to find out about Kasaneptera, the fairy of the dells. It was the ants' feast day. Oh yes, ants have a feast day too. It's to celebrate the Queen's birthday. And Kasaneptera, fairy of the dells, is always up very early on the ants' feast day. She flies to the topmost top of the highest mountain to collect the special honey that she gives to the ants to feast on. This honey is made by the rarest bees in the universe. In fact, no one has ever seen these bees because they are invisible. The only way that anyone can tell that they're alive is because once a year they produce this special honey for the ants' feast day. Now there was a very bad bear who had a very sweet tooth, and not only did he love berries, He also just loved eating honey. And last year he had seen the ants feasting on this special honey, because as he was wandering through the dell, he had seen the very last ant enjoying the last delicious taste of honey. There's not a lot of this special honey, but luckily there is just the exact right amount for each ant to get a tintillating taste. It is thought by some that this honey is so special that it could keep the ants alive for a year and a day if there was no other food for them. But as you know, ants are absolutely amazing at their ability to find food in the strangest places. So this day, that very bad bear decided that he was going to taste that special honey. Kasaneptera reached up high into the small cave at the very top of the mountain to get out the special honey. She knew that she could have just said a magic spell with a wave of her magic fairy wand to dislodge that special honey from the cave, but somehow she never did that. She liked to feel the silky smoothness of the sweet sticky honey as she gently pulled it from its perch. The fairy carried with her a special silken sack spun by one of her spider friends. Every year, Serendipity Spider looked forward to weaving the web for the sack that would carry the ants' very special feast day honey. The sun hadn't quite woken up when Kasaneptera gently pulled the honey out and placed it carefully in Serendipity Spider's silken sack. She knew the ants would be waiting eagerly for her to return with their taste treat. They all lined up in a huge circle as Kasaneptera delivered her delicious treat to the queen of the hive, who was sitting patiently waiting on a brown and grey mushroom in the centre of the circle. One by one, the ants knew they would each take their turn to quietly approach the queen, who would give them their delicious taste of honey. But on this day, just as the queen was about to give the very first scoop of tasty sweet honey to the very first ant, the very bad bear appeared. "Want honey," he said, "yum, yum." And he reached across the line of ants and snatched the sack of honey from the queen. Quickly, Kasaneptera waved her magic fairy wand and said a magic spell. "Unicorn, universe unusual, bad bear bagged, stop stealing sack, sour taste smack." The very bad bear took no notice of the fairy. He stuck his huge paw in the honey and licked the honey off his fur. Suddenly his face twisted into a sickly, sour look. "No good, honey bad," he said as he dropped the sack of honey. Just before it hit the ground, Kasaneptera flew in and caught it. "Shoo, bear, go away," she said, as several of the ants bit the toes of the very bad bear. "Oh, oh," he cried as he limped away through the dell. Kasaneptera flew back to the queen, handing her the honey sack. But before the queen began handing out the honey, she asked the queen to wait while she cast another spell to make sure there was enough honey for all the ants. "One moment, Your Majesty," she said, and she waved her magic fairy wand, made of grass woven with the web of a golden spider, above the honey and said, "Unicorn, universe unusual, honey sack intact, no honey lost, bad bear tossed." And that was the story of Kasaneptera, the fairy of the dells. You know, Hawaii is a microcosm of the world, with people here from all over the world. And Noa Noa Hawaii is a microcosm of the traditional arts of the world, with beautiful patterns from many countries. They've been in business for more than 40 years with wonderful Hawaii-designed batik clothing. Their hand-dyed and handmade clothes have patterns that are based on traditional kapa and tapa designs from Hawaii, Polynesia, Micronesia, Indonesia, even New Zealand and Africa. So check out the wonderful items that Noa Noa has on their website, www.noanoahawaii.com.